from the network of the 1992 Olympic Winter Games. Next, from CBS Sports, in our 36th year of coverage, the National Football League.
Greg Gumbel along with Terry Bradshaw, and we welcome you to week number 16, which continues here on the NFL Today. It could be a momentous day for some teams and their long-suffering fans. 7 of the 12 playoff spots have been decided, but 4 out of 6 on the NFC side are still up for grabs. Washington, the NFC East champion, has sewn up the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They will tune up against the Giants in one of our doubleheader games later today. The Redskins were joined yesterday by the Bears. Richard Dent and the Chicago defense, playing in bare weather, froze out Tampa Bay 27-0 to earn at least a wild card.
It feels good, but, you know, we want to go in the right way as the division champs, get the bye, and have somebody come through Chicago. We don't want to go in as the wild card.
Now, the Bears have a vested interest in today's Detroit-Green Bay game, and with half an hour to kick off out in cold Lambeau Field, Detroit's Barry Sanders, the NFC's leading rusher, is trying to adjust to the elements. If the Lions get tripped up, Chicago wins the NFC Central Division title. If the Lions win, they're in the playoffs for the first time since 1983. Down in Atlanta, where Chris Miller is warming up to face Seattle, the Falcons could also clinch a playoff berth by day's end. In Philadelphia, journeyman Jeff Kemp becomes the 4th quarterback to start for the Eagles this year. Philadelphia has won 6 straight. Their opponents, the Dallas Cowboys, have won 3 in a row. This is a crucial contest in the NFC wildcard race. Now, here's how the NFC playoff picture looks. Chicago, with a tiebreaker edge over Detroit, has the inside track on the NFC Central Division crown. 4 teams are tied at 9-5. 2 of them, the Eagles and the Cowboys, meet head-on in Philadelphia today. And let's go live to Veterans Stadium, where Leslie Visser is standing by with the latest. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, Greg. Think warm thoughts. It's 10 degrees here with the wind chill. The winds could be gusting up to 30 miles an hour, which could be a problem for both the passing and the kicking games. As for the quarterbacks, Jim McMahon is dressed today in street clothes. He's nursing those barbecued ribs. I asked him how he felt, and he said, it only hurts when I breathe. Well, that could be a problem. He'll be replaced by Jeff Kemp, who's making his first start for the Eagles. As for the Cowboys, Troy Aikman's right knee is 75%, but he'll only be used in an emergency. He'll be replaced, of course, by Steve Berline, who's led the team to 3 straight wins. That's it from here, Greg, where it's kind of a hot matchup on a chilly day.
All right, Leslie, thanks very much. You are the Dallas offense. What are you doing against that #1 Philadelphia Eagles defense?
I talked to the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, Norv Turner. He said it's the hardest game he's ever had to prepare for because he cannot find weaknesses, and he's got to find a way to protect his quarterback. He said the other thing he said, Terry, is that it's a mismatch between our offensive line and their defensive line. In other words, they're better than we are. And he said, number 3, he said, we studied films and we saw the 49ers rush 40 times. We saw the Redskins rush 46 times. Both teams beat them. Look for the Cowboys to come out and rush the football today. And one of the real good shining moments for the Cowboys will be the fact that Berline, the quarterback for the Cowboys, did not play against the Eagles, so 11 sacks does not linger. It's not a nightmare with him.
Yeah, the running game, first time these teams met this year, Emmitt Smith just 44 yards against Philadelphia. As for the Detroit Lions, if they win today, they're in the playoffs. And for more cold facts on this game, let's go to Randy Cross at the NFL's version of Ice Station Zebra.
Aloha from Green Bay, Wisconsin. You know, the locals call this weather balmy. I mean, heck, it's not going to get but 23 below zero. That's not all bad. You know, you get weather like this, you got to make the best of a bad situation. Take, for instance, my partner, James Brown. Does he know how to relax or what?
I mean, this is absolutely just...
Various people do various things. Brian Noble does his Davy Crockett imitation. How cold is it? We asked new Detroit Lion Bubba Paris, who has a little natural insulation, what he thought.
It's cold enough that it made it through my epidermal level.
But the story this year for the Detroit Lions has been offense. Today, it's defense, and their defense is banged up. They've got Jerry Ball on IR. His replacement, Pete, has got back spasms. Linebacker George Jamison has a bad ankle and turf toe, and on a frozen field, probably won't play.
Time to go to the beach.
The beach, you're right. That's a story from Green Bay, Wisconsin. We're out of here. Eat your heart out.
Yeah, boy,
We're
I'm
signing
eating mine
papers
out.
for Randy and JB later today. The Atlanta Falcons, like their baseball brethren, the Braves, are incredibly within striking distance of going from worst to first. Today, a Falcon win coupled with a Philadelphia loss will assure Atlanta of at least a wild card. Our Jim Gray is in Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium, where nothing that happens should surprise us anymore.
Here in Atlanta, it's an awful big day for the Falcons. This is the first time since 1982 that they find themselves in first place. They've won 4 games in a row, 6 of their last 7, and during their 4-game winning streak, they've been averaging 33 points per game. This also marks the last regular season game here at Fulton County Stadium. After 26 years, the Falcons will be moving next year into the Georgia Dome. You know, Jerry Glanville has a much different way of preparing his team, so much different than anyone else in the NFL. In fact, if you take a look at the past hour and a half in the pregame, you wouldn't even know that Glanville or the Falcons have a game to play.
The only way you play is be loose and relaxed. So our locker room, everybody has a contribution. They can pick a song, they can pick the music they want, and we turn the music up. We're having fun. We'll have fun today. Our team will play hard. Our team's always prepared, and they always spill their guts. That's all we ask.
The Falcons certainly do know how to have a lot of fun, but they've never beaten the Seahawks. Seahawks are 4-0, and today Kelly Stouffer will get his first start replacing David Craig. That's the story from here in Atlanta.
All right, Jim, thank you. Now, over in the AFC, 5 of the 6 playoff berths are already accounted for. Buffalo, the NFC East champion, needs a victory or a Houston loss to secure the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Houston is the Central Division winner, and we'll hear from Oilers quarterback Warren Moon a bit later. The AFC West title is still unresolved. Some of you will see Denver hosting Phoenix in one of our doubleheader games later. A Broncos win and a Raiders loss tomorrow night would give Denver the title. And 4 teams are still vying for the final AFC wildcard spot. Miami can capture it today with a win plus a loss by the New York Jets. You mentioned the Houston Oilers, a little bit of a pressure on them now.
I think so. I look at that AFC, Greg, and I see Buffalo, Denver, and Houston as the 3 top teams. I really see Houston as the best overall team. You have to look at 27th ranking of the Buffalo Bills. That knocks them down, in my opinion. They have to win on the road, and they're going to have to win 2 of the next games, the remaining 2 games, to have a bye at home. They have to play next 2 weeks in bad conditions. If they're going to win and go to the Super Bowl, they're going to have to travel to Buffalo, provided they continue winning. The run and shoot has to prove it can play in bad, cold conditions. Cleveland, not a better, what a better place to go and find out.
Yeah, you go. I'd rather stay.
No, I think I'll let you
Next up, we'll head back to Philadelphia, where Leslie has the story of the defense that never rests when the NFL Today continues live from New York here on CBS.
The NFL Today is sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Comfort Tech shoes by Floorshine. Try a pair and get comfortable. And by the Die Hard battery, now with more power when you need it most.
Well, today's weather satellite photographs show gray skies in the Great Lakes region with some scattered snow squalls, but what the eye in the sky can't show are the howling winds. In Cleveland, the Browns and Oilers will face flurries and a wind chill of 0. The Steelers and the Bengals will face similarly unpleasant conditions at Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh. And from there, we head east across the Keystone State to Philadelphia, where Leslie has a look at a band of players who form an offensive coordinator's worst nightmare. Leslie?
Greg, I think Reggie White is running a ministry of fear down here. The Eagles defense, sometimes called the birds of prey, are first against the run, first against the pass, first in total defense. Jimmy Johnson just told me it's the best he's ever seen. They are 11 angry men who offer the Cowboys a clear and present danger.
It's an attitude. I mean, right now, it's not only attitude, but it's confidence.
Call it attitude, ability, toughness. They're number 1 and so dominating that fans are starting to compare them to the all-time greats. Partial credit goes to former head coach Buddy Ryan, who also captained legendary defenses in Chicago and Minnesota, and to current defensive coach Bud Carson, who directed Pittsburgh's defense to their first 2 Super Bowl wins.
What have you retained from Buddy Ryan and now added under Bud Carson?
I think the tenacity, more than anything. You know, we used to be very braggadocious and things like that with Buddy, and we don't really talk as much anymore.
I think in the modern era of defensive football, where holding is practically acknowledged, all the bumps that we were allowed to use in Pittsburgh is no longer there. To have a defensive team that's playing as consistently well as this football team is something I thought I would never see with the rules like they are.
All these defenses had the similar people. They were tough people. They were people that had the will to win. If you have a bunch of hired killers, that helps. That's the way defense is supposed to be played. And they have a bunch of them in Philadelphia, and they're going to be great for years to come.
About the only thing the Eagles defense doesn't have is a nickname. The Fearsome Foursome, the Steel Curtain, the Purple People Eaters. As defensive coordinator Bud Carson says, they took the one we wanted, the Broad Street Bullies.
We've kicked a lot of nicknames around, but we're going to wait to the end of the year before we try to come up with nicknames, and hopefully that'll be after the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl, yes, a great defense can carry a team that far. But in the past 3 years, the Eagles have lost their opening round playoff games. But this year, Philadelphia's defense is headed for the history books. Consider the following. A combination of the number of points the Eagles have given up, plus the net rushing and passing yards allowed, yields a total number of 232.1, which is better than some of the hallmark defenses of old. Better than the old Purple People Eaters, the Bears, the Doomsday Defense of Dallas, and the Fearsome Foursome. Only the Steel Curtain came close.
I don't think we had anyone like Reggie White. He's probably the catalyst.
Very good defense. They remind me a lot of the Raiders' defense. It's kind of tough to say that they're there yet, but they have a chance to be.
If you're going to have a great defense, you have to play great against the great teams, which are the teams in the playoffs. So until that time, you know, I just think we're just a good defense.
This ferocious group wants to send 6 players to the Pro Bowl. The voting is tomorrow, including 3 linemen, Clyde Simmons, Jerome Brown, and Reggie White. Could be a chance for Simmons to wrap it up by wrapping up Berline. Last time against the Cowboys, he had 4 sacks. Greg, it could be a long day for Mark Tuinei.
It could indeed. Leslie, thank you very much. You mentioned his 4 sacks. Troy Aikman sacked 11 times in all last times these teams met. Show us the kind of problems the Eagles present.
The old telestrator. One of the keys to playing great defense, and I think defensive coordinator Bud Carson of the Eagles is best at this, that is forcing teams to play to your strength. The strength of the Eagles is their 4-down linemen. But the key is if you can get this linebacker, and this linebacker to cover these 3 gentlemen tight, that's called man-to-man coverage, you therefore force the quarterback to go away from his first option. Notice as we release this tape, notice the first option, notice the pick inside. Now here comes the back on the outside, but notice this linebacker jamming, slows him down. Look at Byron Evans coming over to pick him up. Look at Joyner coming around to pick up Emmitt Smith. Look at the quarterback as he is staring down, hoping to get the ball to that back quickly. Against great pass rushers, you cannot hold the football. Now, hold their tape right there. Now let's look again. Aikman still looking. Please, somebody come open. This rush is going to get to me. Again, look at Aikman going around, and notice that this man and this man is covered, but he has good pass protection. Then all of a sudden, the coverage forces Aikman to hold the ball too long. That is called a coverage sack. Therefore, if you're a passing offensive team, you always look short first. With playing man-to-man coverage, Greg, the linebackers playing them tight. That takes the short one away, forces the quarterback to go deep. Deeper routes take longer time, plays into the hands of the defensive line of the Eagles.
Bottom line is the offensive line can do its job well and still defeat it.
Bottom line, don't play the Eagles and have them on your schedule.
When we come back, Terry talks shop with Houston quarterback Warren Moon as we continue here on the NFL Today. Well, last week, the Houston Oilers clinched their first AFC Central Division title, and now they're looking for a first-round playoff bye. This week, Terry visited with Warren Moon, and their conversation covered the range of emotions that he's experienced this season.
Warren, what impact did winning the AFC Central have on this Houston Oilers franchise?
Well, we're very proud of it because we've made a little bit of history. We're the first team that's ever done it, and there was a lot of times during the late 70s when this team finished second to your team and played your team a few times in the AFC Championship, but was never able to win the AFC Championship because of the Pittsburgh Steelers great teams and so on. So we finally reached that milestone, and here we are.
Who'd you do it against?
Against Pittsburgh.
Are you disappointed because you've thrown 20 interceptions as well as 20 touchdown passes? Is that one of the parts where teams are forcing you probably to take something you really don't want to take in this offense?
You get tired of that, and as you go on these long drives where we've had a lot of 10-plus play drives, there's a lot of room for error, and when you have drives that long, every now and then you have to have a drive where you have 1 or 2 plays and you're out with a touchdown. So when you go in 10, 15 plays on a drive, a lot of bad things can happen, fumbles, interceptions, penalties, whatever. And that's what's happened to us a little bit this year.
Warren, you said Mondays that there were racial problems in the Houston area about fans and the way they viewed you. Could you kind of just clarify that now?
Well, I feel great because of the support that I've gotten from the fans here in Houston. I'm sure that's just a small section of what's going on here, and there was a lot of frustrated people, and they voiced some opinions. And usually when a team doesn't do well, they blame the quarterback or the coach, and I happen to be in that situation.
You've accomplished a lot of awards, tons of records. Is the Super Bowl the only goal that Warren Moon has left?
That's what's left, Terry. I mean, I've done a lot of things as an individual. This team has been to the playoffs 5 years in a row now when we go this year, and nobody else can say that. But the only thing we haven't done is win the whole thing. Yeah. And that's what we want to do. Not only myself, but there's a lot of other players on this team that have been through a lot of those losing years, and they want to win that big one.
Warren Moon opened up about some things that a lot of people would not talk about normally. You say there's a real danger of being a receiver in a run-and-shoot offense.
You know, one quick point here. He was talking about, the patience. He told me that really the interception thing was the lack of his patience. You get bored throwing 5-yard completions. That's what he was alluding to. The other point is teams are catching on to the run and shoot, and they're finding out they really can't stop it. So what they have to do is force boredom on your quarterback. That's what's happened with Moon. Also, when you play a lot of zones, that's how you force boredom. You don't let him go deep. When you play man-to-man, he burns you. What's going to happen eventually, everyone will play all zones, line everybody up short. It's going to force teams that do run in the run and shoot, have 7, 8 receivers on their roster, because when you run zones, Greg, you have to read those zones, you hook in between them, and then the pass comes, and then you get decked. And all those receivers for the Oilers are physically beat up right now. When you catch 400 or 500 balls a year, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah. When we come back, Pat O'Brien gives new meaning to the term political football when he takes us around the NFL today, right after this. Looky here. Here's Pat O'Brien.
All right, Greg, Terry, thank you. Today we're going to try something a little different because, after all, like those tabloids, this segment is a sensational, gratuitous headline grabber meant only to snare those high ratings. And so today, in our little Sunday supplement, heck, we're doing this for the critics who say you can't put sex, animal cruelty, football, and presidential politics on a family program. Oh, yeah? First off, you Super Bowl tailgaters, look what's waiting for you. And you cowboy quarterbacks, this is what's waiting for you.
Playing the Dallas Cowboys again this week. Last time we played them, I learned how to wrestle some steer. Super Bowl. Come on. I was wondering if you could show me how to throw down some steps so we can squash them Cowboys this week. I'm sorry.
I told you not to do that.
Everybody, clear the floor. Clear the floor.
Now I'm ready to two-step through them Cowboys. Damn it, I'm coming for you, son.
Our tabloid colleagues still think this was the wedding of the century. Wanna bet?
You ready for some football?
But the question is, how compatible are these loving Giants and Eagles fans?
Here is what's going to happen, sexually speaking. Let's suppose her team wins. They're going to have terrific good sex.
Intercepted. Intercepted.
Oh, yes! Awesome!
I wonder if they stay tuned for 60 minutes after the game. By the way, here's a presidential story 60 Minutes has fumbled. Who will run against George Bush? Well, a grassroots movement, no artificial turf please, is exploding on behalf of our own John Madden, and you thought Reagan was the great communicator. We wondered what might happen if, for once, the people got their way. For starters, Air Force One will be grounded, and John Sununu would have had to take the bus.
I don't think anybody's been around and done as many miles as John Madden has in that cruiser of his, and I think he's got a good feel for what the people of America need right now.
Did you vote for him?
Absolutely.
People would line up on Sundays to watch football from the South Lawn.
So he has the appeal, and that's what scares me. You know, we'll have everybody walk around going, bing, bam, boom. We can't have that in the White House.
Oh, yes, we can, and let's make that perfectly clear.
Well, I think he'd make a great candidate for president. I've often said that there's only one thing worse than being wrong for a candidate, and that is to be dull. and John Madden is never dull. A candidate today has to be good on TV, and Madden is gangbusters on TV.
Always great to see Richard Nixon on Around the NFL today. Here is the first Madden for President button, folks, and I got to tell you, it is no coincidence that Madden is in Washington today for the Giants-Redskins game. Tonight is the first presidential debate. Democrats. Do you have a place in his administration?
I've got a red phone here, and I just got my call from Madden.
Not the red phone again.
And I am up for Secretary of Offense, and I'm very flattered and honored, and I'll be running on that ticket.
Well, we're thrilled for this. I know that we can't have a complete Sunday without Ruth Westheimer's take on football. Broncos! We'll be back.
Or mine.
Greg, Terry, and Pat back for the last word. We've been saying it all day. Dallas at Philadelphia. Cowboys have to run the football.
They have to run the football. If you can have a healthy quarterback running, that'd be nice. The real key today is traps. Traps against the 4-3 team.
Detroit is at Green Bay. The Lions can clinch a playoff spot with a win. And the Rams are at Minnesota. A loss eliminates the Vikings from the playoffs. All of that coming your way next. We'll see you at halftime. Bye-bye. Coming up at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, some of you will see the Giants take on the NFC East champion Redskins, or the Phoenix Cardinals against the playoff-bound Denver Broncos. The NFL on CBS continues at 4 Eastern.
This is CBS.